welcome to this edition of Stream On. I'm Jim Williams, your host, and this week we're going to take a look at Paramount Plus's new documentary series, Dream Team: Birth of the Modern Athlete, with Jack McCallum and Emmett Malloy. Now, Jack wrote the New York Times best-selling book, The Dream Team, which explores the global growth of the NBA on the heels of the Dream Team's international success at the 1992 Barcelona Olympics, which basically put the NBA on the map and started worldwide expansion of the game. Also joining us is Emmett Malloy. He is, along with his brother Brendan, the executive producers of this outstanding series. Now, for those of you who may not know or may not have kept track of the 1992 game, that basketball team was phenomenal. It had the likes of Michael Jordan, Charles Barkley, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Patrick Ewing, David Robinson, among many others. But it really was a worldwide phenomenon. And Jack and Emmett are going to talk about that. Jack, of course, did a lot of the interviews, actually all of the interviews that you can be seeing in the series. And he did it on tape back in the day. And we'll get to hear those tapes unedited. And it's really a phenomenal series. So let's jump in there. Jack and Emmett, welcome. Emmett, one of the things that impressed me a lot is that your use of the old style television, in footage, and the way you were able to intertwine that footage and those interviews to make everything fit perfectly and become so relevant. Let's talk about that.
Cool. Yeah, those were good. We always kind of find if you can put some footage up and let people remember a moment visually, you saw it with the Jordan thing. I don't think having an iPad on the screens is cool looking as an old TV set. So we like to kind of take those embellishments that make the thing just maybe a bit more fun to watch. And also romances, when they walk in the room, having a TV up on the booth at Dantana's with Jerry West, got him really in the mood when it's, noon and we're sitting in a place that's maybe better off at 10:30 or 11 at night.
Right.
You got to set the vibe a little, and we tried to do a lot of that throughout.
Well, it went very well. It was a fantastic.
Cool.
And the stories, Jack, you, of course, wrote the book, literally, on the Dream Team. Those stories came to life, and you know what? I still have one of those tape machines, so don't let anybody bust you on that
one. Okay, good. That's good to hear.
So, from your standpoint, you wrote the book, and you were involved in the filming. What was most fun for you as this thing developed?
Well, first of all, it was just the experience. I mean, I had, when you write been around as long as I have, you get nibbles here and there. Hey, we want to do this with your book and this article. We want to maybe option something. And hey, you wrote this, and wouldn't that be a good story? And could we talk to you about it? But Emmett and his guys, and there is a lot of them, so I don't want to start mentioning everybody, but first of all, they optioned the book, which, hey, I mean, Emmett's a filmmaker. He can tell you better than I can, but
sure,
they could just steal this stuff. I mean, it's out there in the ether, but they optioned my book, and that means that I get some money out of it. Then they really stayed active with having me involved. And so my first reaction, Jim, was I was very flattered, and I was very surprised, and I was really very excited with how much they involved me with the whole project, because they didn't really have to do that. I know I gave them something, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to badmouth. I gave them some phone numbers and some direction, but they didn't have to do everything they did. So I had a completely positive experience with the whole thing, and I think they understand how much I appreciated the fact that they had me involved.
Emmett, from your standpoint, I loved the integration of the actual audio tapes that Jack recorded during his research that he did on the book.
Yeah, I mean that, Jack and I just kind of caught up about that a minute ago, recapping how that came to be. And, it was literally like Jack showed up at our office in LA with a white laundry bag of goods, because we kind of said, bring anything you've got, the first time we were able to all hang out. And, he saw our minds working right when he started breaking out these artifacts. We just were, we knew, and that kind of speaks to everything Jack just said. The relationship was that way from the get-go. We were all real excited to lay it all out and let's figure out how we can make this opportunity exciting, because this was a story people have immersed. A lot of people have read Jack's book. A lot of people have seen the series the NBA did. A lot of people just lived this moment, and we had to kind of figure out how are we going to make this thing different? How are we going to make it exciting for people to engage with it? And those tapes just became the center of our research, and they were so good they kind of became the center of our show.
One of the great things that both you guys do and Jack through his book, and Jack and I a little bit because we were a little behind the scenes there, those guys were not the 92 Dream Team. They were not friends. And bringing them together with Chuck Daly wasn't as easy as I think a lot of people thought it was.
Yeah, I mean, they, it's a different culture now. It's like LeBron, Kevin Durant, Chris Paul. I don't know whether this is literally true, Carmelo Anthony.
Yeah.
But certainly by the time they are sophomores in high school,
right,
they know each other. They've been at camp. They've been at AAU. They've been on YouTube videos.
Right.
Chances are they've played a game in Slovenia together.
Right.
That is not what happened with these guys. And that was one of the surprising things. I mean, I had covered the league, so I had some sense of it. But the question that I asked them that probably surprised me the most when I was doing the research for the book was, what did you pick up from the other guys? And everybody, interestingly, answered that question very enthusiastically. I remember Scottie Pippen talking about the way Karl Malone worked out.
Right.
I remember Bird talking about the way Pippen and Jordan played defense together. I remember David Robinson talked about the way the real mega stars of the league, Jordan, Magic, Larry in particular, would get into his head, because he wasn't that kind of a guy. And that really was very interesting to me. It was almost like they weren't 12 strangers, because Michael and Scotty played together, and Carl and John Stockton did. But it was almost like you took this team of guys that everybody assumed they knew each other, but they had this kind of feeling out process also. And I think that comes across, that hopefully was one of the parts of the book, and I think it comes across also in the doc.
It does. Emmett and his team has done a fantastic job. Emmett, kudos to you and to your team, because from you talk about how there was the bad boys, holding back Michael, and the Chicago Bulls had to earn their way past them, and it was a rough time, but it was a good time. And I think that was something that you were able to bring out in your own way. And you told the story, I think, brilliantly, about how these guys respected each other, but at the end of the day realized that there was a benefit if they actually played together.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was kind of the kickoff. And what I always try to do with this series is connect with our bold, kind of second line title, The Birth of the Modern Athlete, because again, all these things were this acceptance of a new way of thinking, a new culture that was brewing specifically out of Michael Jordan's career. And we tried to make sure that the series felt that way all the way through, that we were making these broader statements about the impact of this team, because you really can go at this team, you can almost connect it to any storyline you want. And oh yeah, the dream team had something to do with that. Whatever, international players and the talent that's come up, all the way, you can start going, oh, the Gasols were probably at that Olympics as young kids. You start finding these things and you get super excited because it was really where we always went as a creative team with Jack. And Jack was always real smart with us to say, hey guys, I just want to remind you, like, the games weren't that exciting, and every time we'd start getting like kind of carried away on a specific, kind of beat in there, we realized that it either been told too many times or really wasn't that exciting when you really tried to bring it to life on screen. So it led us to all these other storylines that I think the series really benefited from, because I think it's going to let people sit down and actually kind of watch, 5 hours of programming that I think they're going to be like, well, I didn't know any of this, and I think there's a lot of that in this series, which it would have been easy to go the other route too, kind of really play up the big storylines. And we tried to kind of find a more, a different story to tell here. And we thought the explosion of the game of basketball from this was the one. And we just kept trying to find cool ways to bring that to the screen.
I think one of the other things that you did, Emmett, and to a point with Jack, is you brought out the brilliance of what an amazing commissioner David Stern was.
Yeah.
There wasn't a better commissioner in sports, my own personal opinion, than David. He was smarter than any other commissioner at the time. He knew what to do. He knew how to leverage. He knew how to take stars and make them better. And he understood TV long before everybody else did.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I mean, David was talking about, and he was always ahead of, and he never let us forget it, by the way. He was always a step ahead of the reporters. David was, and I can remember probably the first time I met him, I started covering the league back in the early 80s.
Right.
David really didn't come to commissioner until 84, but he was, he had his hands were all over it.
Right.
And he was talking about, television in Italy, some small, guy, television, well, a station in Spain or a station in Italy. And this was before, we didn't even have TNT. We were still going, holy crap, look at that Madonna video on MTV.
Right.
And David is going, I think we can make a deal with this guy over in, and he did some real early shady TV deals. I mean, the NBA, so he sprinkled these little seeds like all over the world that I'm not even sure he knew, but they started growing. And so 8, 9, 10 years later, when this all kind of collided, a lot of that was what David Stern had started back in 81, 82, before nobody, no matter what they say, nobody was thinking about that stuff like David Stern was.
And the other thing was in 92 at Barcelona during the press conference he was giving over there, and they were asking him, what did he hope would happen 10 years from there? And he said, I hope in 10 years there's 4 or 5 teams that will play competitively and perhaps even beat us. And everybody looked at him like he was crazy. But if you look what David did, to your point, David and the NBA and Michael and the Dream Team created a world basketball explosion, which put them basically on par almost with the English Soccer League and some of the top international leagues. You can go in France or in pretty much anywhere in the world and buy an NBA jersey. Good luck trying to go buy an NFL jersey around the world. It ain't going to happen.
Yeah, I remember when I was growing up, had baseball had any kind of vision, because I still remember looking at the morning paper and there was a picture of Fidel Castro pitching a baseball, a communist leader. And so baseball had it. Baseball was the American game. Baseball was a game you could import. It's not as simple as basketball. You need bats and a ball, but you don't need a hell of a lot else. and they didn't do anything, and they didn't do anything. And football, now it's kind of making this frantic effort to do it. I'm talking about American football. So basketball, in that respect, saw this opening. And if you look at the game right now, so much of their success financially, culturally, and even, with players like Luka Doncic and, the Greek Freak and all those guys, and game-wise, is because of the international part of the game, which really was launched by the Dream Team.
Absolutely. And Emmett, in your group, one of the things that I think you've done so well is you really tell the story by using so many different people from so many different levels. I mean, you've got Jesse Jackson, you've got all different types of leaders, political leaders, cultural leaders, and sports leaders all in the show to really give it a depth and a heft that very few documentaries, use.
Yeah, obviously, like that Jesse Jackson day was very emotional for everybody that got to sit and listen to that. So there were those incredible moments where they even allowed us all to really feel the confidence we were trying to create in the edit bay, because by then when we shot someone like Jesse, we had been doing it for a while. All of a sudden this new weight came to the show where you're like, oh my goodness, how incredible to hear this point of view. But when you're making these series, you're just looking for great storytellers. You're just looking for people that can speak. And luckily we had a topic that almost anybody could have spoken to, in a fairly confident manner, So we just tried to have, like any movie, a great cast of people. We also knew we probably weren't going to get Michael Jordan, probably weren't going to get some of the great players and personalities on the team because, for a variety of reasons. Michael Jordan had just put out a 10-part series. We felt pretty sure we weren't going to get his participation, but because of the tapes and Jack's kind of interviews with these guys back when I think they were more in the center of their career, they were more in their prime. I think they had these more these personalities that were less reflective at that moment. So it was cool to kind of be able to get it any way we needed to tell the story. And we, by the fact that we tried to make this broader storyline of kind of the impact that this team had, rather than focusing on the details of the training and the practices. And we got into all that stuff, but it allowed us to kind of get some great personalities and storytellers to come into the mix, because someone like John Sally, he wasn't on the team, but he certainly had a lot of skin in the game, but we just knew he was a great storyteller, and he was somebody that we wanted to have in there. Same with Jerry West. The Olympics meant a lot to him in his life. And, this topic made everybody get pretty emotional.
Yeah, you could tell. I mean, the way it was done. By the way, it's always good to see that some things never change. Charles wasn't, when Charles was being interviewed about when Jack was interviewing Charles, it was like, who's going to pick up the check? And good to see that Charles hasn't changed over the years. He was,
Charles has only gotten bigger. I mean, what Charles has done, when you think about it, I mean, Jordan obviously is still Jordan and Magic's still Magic, but Charles Barkley has probably, more than almost anyone I can think of across the entertainment world, actor or whatever, has really, transformed himself to the top of American culture. And he's bigger now than, I mean, he's a great player, but it's almost like Charles's career as a commentator and an American kind of, Mark Twain has almost eclipsed what he was as a player. And he's certainly one of the, 20, I'm thinking quickly, one of the 15 to 20 greatest players ever. But he's really zoomed to the top of the, the flow chart of American personalities.
You know, and Emmett, what you guys did early in that in the documentary, establishing that there were very few commentators of color during that time, during the NBA, and you know, you called it out, and that was absolutely something that, thank God, has changed over the years.
Yeah, I mean, that was obviously you've seen it now in a lot of the narratives of the NBA and the evolution of it, but that stood out as a big moment for us. And, we wanted to really focus on that. If you're talking about all the positive aspects of change around this team, it goes way deeper than just the international explosion of the sport. It goes through the sophistication and elevation of the sport, and that's where you start to see a lot of the amazing stories. And you look at someone like Dr. J, and you see, you know the way he played with the showmanship and the athletic quality and the dunks. You know that he was just a little ahead of the moment, and you kind of want to know why. And those were the things that came out and really stood out to us as we started to investigate, this true arc of how basketball became what it is now, this worldwide thing. These were all part of the growth and evolution of the league, and they were big storylines for us.
So what do you hope, Emmett and Jack, that the audience takes away from this series?
Well, the first thing I hope is that people watch it. As Emmett alluded to, there was a previous Dream Team documentary, and that the NBA did in conjunction with NBA Entertainment, and it was very good, very solid. And but you can have 3 or 4 ways of looking at the same subject. So I hope people take a look at it and realize that there's something different in these 5 parts. Secondly, I guess that there were these cultural moments. I mean, we're at such a, not to get too political here, but we're so divided. I mean, we're so at odds about everything now that I know that one of the things, the Jordan documentary was criticized in some ways. It was this, it was that.
Sure.
Some people didn't like it. They thought Jordan's hand was too much in it. But it was kind of this unifying moment. And there was this time in 1992. Now, not everybody loved the Dream Team, and I'm not saying that's what you have to, but there was this magnetic moment when we were kind of focused on it. And if everybody wasn't all, hey, let's go get them, kumbaya, at least it furnished something to talk about. So sure. I hope it takes people kind of back to that moment when there was this something that we could all concentrate on, we all had an opinion on, we all remember, and we could all derive something from it.
Special thanks to our guests Jack McCallum and Emmett Malloy, 2 of the driving forces behind the Paramount Plus documentary series Dream Team: Birth of the Modern Athlete, which is now available on Paramount Plus. All the information on the show is in our show box below. We'll be back with more of Stream On right after this from BMW.
At BMW, we know leaving the road wasn't easy, but anticipating our return taught us to appreciate every drive. The exhilaration of the ultimate adventure. Moments spent with your favorite co-pilots. And the freedom to explore just because. Our time to rejoin the road is finally here.
Welcome back, everybody. Now, if you're not one of the over 75,000 people worldwide who've joined our little party here, first of all, shame on you. Second of all, we make it simple. It is free. You can find us at the Apple Podcast Store. Same thing at iTunes. You can find us at Google Play. You can find us at Spreaker, Stitcher, Spotify, as well as iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, and YouTube, just to name a few. Now, you can also, if you have an assistant device, which of course would be something like Google or Alexa or Siri, All you have to do is ask them to play the latest edition of Stream On with Jim Williams. That's Stream On with Jim Williams, and they'll play it for you. Now, if you still can't find us, okay, not to worry. Pull out the old Google machine, type in Stream On with Jim Williams, hit the favorite button or subscribe button, and each week you're going to get a brand new edition of the podcast sent directly to your home via your phone or your tablet, or both, okay? So please go out there and do that for us. We greatly would appreciate it, okay? Cool. Now, we love that you guys are very active with us on social media. And as you know, as we've been going through the summer weeks, as we count them down, and there aren't that many left, you guys have given us some outstanding ideas of what we should be binging while we're at the beach, while we're at the lake, while we're maybe just staycation at home, okay? But we have time to binge, and we have friends and family around, so, it's always a cool thing to do. And this week, here's what you got for us. We start off with the L Word. Now, the L Word, when it started back in 2004, was a bit controversial. It was the first really lesbian-based show, and it was very true to life. It was very interesting and entertaining. It took a while to catch, but when it did, it really flew. And, they had 5 seasons, and it was one of the best shows at that time on television. Now, they've redone it, and the L Word is back. Only this time it's L Word Generation Q. And just like the original L Word, it has hit the ground running, and it is doing very, very well. You can find the L Word Generation Q on Hulu as well as on Showtime. Okay, so check that out. L Word Generation Q. Stargirl. Now, it's a CW show, and you can see it if you have a CW app. Now, CW apps are free, so if you want to take the time, whether you're on Roku or Fire Stick or Apple TV, any of those, you can find the CW app. It's free. All the contents there is free. If you happen to have HBO Max, it's also there as well. So check out Stargirl, a very entertaining show, DC Comics. Now, this is a comedy, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, which has had probably the best cult following. And it's one of the reasons it's been kept alive as long as it has. Now, this unfortunately will be the last season. And Brooklyn Nine-Nine is really quite a clever show. It's a funny show. It's a great ensemble cast. You can find it, of course, on Hulu as well as on Peacock. So check that out, Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Titans, definitely another one of the DC franchises. Now, interesting enough, you can find Titans, all 3 seasons, on HBO Max, but the first 2 seasons were on DC Universe. So it's quite possible that you haven't seen anything of the Titans. And that's kind of cool because that gives you the opportunity to check out the Titans, which again is a really well done DC comics show. And it's done by HBO Max, and by all means, you should check it out. So Titans on HBO Max, and all 3 years are there. Modern Love is back on Amazon Prime. Really some fantastic people in the show this time around. You've got Tina Fey and Hathaway. You've got Minnie Driver. Some really great actors and actresses in the show. Modern Love. Check it out on Amazon. All right. Lastly, but certainly not leastly, is The Walking Dead. Now, I know a lot of people, it's a cult following. It's kind of like Game of Thrones from a standpoint. People really either like it or you don't. And I happen to think it's quite an interesting show. You can find Walking Dead on AMC. You can also check it out on Netflix as well as on Amazon. Okay, so that's what we have for you this week to check out. Please do so. All right, thanks very much for everybody here at Stream On. I'm Jim Williams, wishing you a safe and happy weekend. We'll check you out next week, okay? So be safe, enjoy yourselves, and we'll see you next week right here on Stream On with Jim Williams.